New Hampshire's role will be to pick the establishment or the center-right alternative to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And that's what everybody thought all along. Give us one candidate so we go to South Carolina and beyond with an establishment candidate, Ted Cruz as the Tea Party evangelical candidate, and Donald Trump as the disruptor, outsider candidate. And the establishment thought its odds of beating those two would get better. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. There's no question there are a lot of establishment Republicans here. But you go to a Chris Christie event and it's packed, and you go a mile and a half away at a Jeb Bush event and it's packed. John Kasich seems to have momentum here. Marco Rubio was having a good week up until the debate. It looks like New Hampshire's role won't be to pick one establishment candidate. It may be to send two, to knock one or two out of the race and send the rest of them on for that more decisive decision to be made elsewhere. There's no question when you go to the other candidates' rallies that a lot of people are motivated by voting against Donald Trump. You hear them at Rubio rallies, you see them at Christie rallies. Some veteran Republicans here who say that they think it would be embarrassing for New Hampshire and its rich tradition for Donald Trump, who they don't think of as a real Republican, to win the primary. That said, Trump is still way up in the polls heading into the final days. You also meet people who are torn between Trump and Rubio, or torn between Trump and Christie, or torn between Trump and Bush. However, the anti-Trump forces are split and splintered now. In Iowa, they largely rallied to Rubio or Ted Cruz, and therefore Trump was knocked down. Here it appears to be splintered. There's no question it's out there, but Trump has such a big lead, it still looks that Donald Trump will get what he needs the most, a win. The fact that New Hampshire, the second contest, could be Jeb Bush's last stand, if you just step back for a minute, given the family history, given his advantages, what we thought at the beginning of the race, it's pretty stunning to think that Jeb Bush could wake up Wednesday morning and have to have a conversation with himself and his team about whether to stay in the race. He was the Republican Party's $100 million man. He was the early favorite, maybe the nominal front runner. Then Trump got in and changed everything. It's hard to see if Jeb Bush comes in way at the bottom of the pack again, despite his promise, I'm going on to South Carolina, despite the true fact that he has a good organization in South Carolina. If you come in way at the bottom of the pack in Iowa and then come in fifth, a distant fourth, fifth, or sixth in New Hampshire, that's a very tough conversation for Jeb Bush. It is fascinating to watch Secretary Clinton, and maybe even more so the people around her, deal with the fact that Bernie Sanders is for real. They've always thought of him as a protest candidate. They thought of him as a message candidate. They thought there's no way this 70-something guy from Vermont who spent most of his life saying I'm a socialist, not a Democrat. They just didn't think it was possible. And you can see now it's sort of under their skin, and it annoys them. It doesn't just challenge them, it annoys them. And you see that a bit from Secretary Clinton, who has tried to push back at Bernie Sanders on who's a real progressive. But it's clearly under their skin, and they're trying to find a way to deal with it because they were, I think, late to the realization that this isn't just interesting, it's a threat.